Hi everyone and welcome to my Season 25 leveling guide. If you're a veteran, then nothing has really changed, but there is a few little tricks that you can use with the Season 25 Soul Shards that I will talk about in a second. Other than this, I just want to give you an easy start, showing all the different steps that you should do to ensure that you can get to level 70 really quickly and then have a good time starting out in the new season. Now, first things first, you create your character, so give it a name and select the seasonal icon, create hero, and then you want to do the challenge rift to get your materials. So I'll have a guide up for EU and NA on the week of the season start, so that you can just check it out and blast through the challenge rift. You will get this challenge rift cache that gives you a lot of materials and gold and blood shards to get started, and this is actually extremely important. So make sure you don't complete the challenge rift before the season starts, or else you will not be able to claim it in the season. After you've done the challenge rift, you go start a game, usually on something like hard or maybe master difficulty. Typically you want to avoid expert difficulty because it has kind of bad experience scaling for how difficult it is. And when you're here, you can select a weapon from one of your followers. They're usually much better than your starting weapon, so you just take them, equip it, also hire one of them, and then you go to the Blacksmith and the Mystic and all that, and you upgrade them with the materials that you get from the challenge rift. So you open your letter here on the bottom left, select it, and you can open it for the materials. You will also have some blood shards that allows you to gamble 19 items. So typically you want to use those at level 1 to try to get some nice multiplier that will help you get started. So we have a guide here where you can see what you should go for, both for gambling and for crafting. You can find this here in the resource menu on max roll, and it will show you in detail like which items you're going for and what you can get. If you don't get any of those, it's usually not too bad. Most classes can still reach level 70 in 1.5 hours or so, and also with the power of the soul shards it might be a bit faster, even if you get unlucky. The reason why I want to do it at specific levels is because it reduces the pool of the items that you can get. So for example, if you select a level 1 Demon Hunter here, you can see that, for example, you could gamble for something like Pox Faults, which is the only pair of pants available at level 1. This is usually a quite easy strategy for most classes that don't really have anything good. So you can just try to stick this into the cube or wear them once you can, and this can already get you going. In other cases, you have better items. For example, on the Monk, there is the Crudest Boots. There's only 2 pairs of boots here at level 1. So there's Revered and Crudest Boots, and I think if you gamble all shards at boots, you get something like a 40-something% chance to get them, and those boots are essentially just solo carrying you on Torment 5 or so all the way to level 70. So this depends a little bit on the class, but in general you have a nice start anyway. Now, another thing that you should do at level 1 is already crafting a few items. So in this case we play a Demon Hunter, we want to get like a bow, so you can just craft like some low-level bows that you can immediately equip once you hit level 8, for example, and then the next one at level 12. Make sure you don't auto-salvage them, so when you go to salvage, don't press this button. You can avoid this by transmuting them, but this only works on PC. If you're playing a melee class or something, you can do this, for example, with daggers here for level 10. There's axes at level 5, etc. So just craft a bunch of those so you can immediately swap out your weapons and on the go, because these are your most important item. Similarly, you also want to craft a reduced level requirement level 70 weapon. So in my case, as Demon Hunter, I would go for a bow. Actually, as a Demon Hunter, you should do it on a Witch Doctor because you won't roll maximum discipline as a secondary, but I will just do it here right now to showcase this. And you don't want to craft too many, so something like 5 is probably the upper limit of how many you want to do, because they actually cost a lot of materials, and you rather want to check a few of them first and see if you can find something that has a crowd control effect. Something like this here and has chance to freeze, and this is exactly what you're looking for. Best case scenario, you also get life per hit as a primary, because that will block life per kill secondary. But we go with this now, so you can see that when you start rerolling this, you have very few secondary effects that you can roll, because this chance to freeze blocks all these other crowd control effects. So best case scenario, you don't have the life per kill here, you also don't have the maximum discipline, so there's only 3 different stats, and it's quite easy to reroll this into reduced level requirement. So this is what you want to do for a few attempts. Usually you don't have that much gold to actually keep rolling a lot, so make sure that in case you get unlucky, you actually try this on another weapon again, or else you're going to run out of gold. You get something like 4 to 5 million at the start. With other classes, you typically go for something like a two-handed axe or so, and you try to get this combo that I described. So here the first one actually has it. So we have knockback and we have life per hit. And now you'll see that it's actually quite easy to roll this, because there's only 3 different stats. So here we take the XP and try to reroll this. And on the second try we got minus level 29. So this is obviously an extremely good result. It goes all the way to minus 30. So this is almost perfect. And now we have a level 41 weapon that will just obliterate everything all the way to like level 60 and level 65 or so on Torment 6, because this weapon is like 5 times better than anything else you're gonna find. So you just put this in your stash and wait until level 41, and then you wear this and you can destroy. Now another thing that you constantly want to do while leveling is check the vendors. So every time you're in town after a run, I mean you go a new game or whatever, you just buy whatever is there. Like, don't really look too much for like a good item. Just take whatever like looks decent at first sight and then go. You don't really want to waste time in town, but you definitely want to go check for vendors, because every few levels you're essentially replacing all your gear. After that, you can start leveling. So you go to Ruins of Zacheron to get the Kanai's Cube. So you go here all the way to the Elder Sanctum, which is the second floor on this map. And then towards the end, you find the Kanai's Cube. And you want to unlock it so you can start cubing items, because this is also quite an important step of the journey. On your way there, you want to try to get Massacre Bonuses going, because that gives you massive amounts of extra XP, especially if you get like long streaks of 100, 200 plus. You can multiply the XP gained by a lot, and it will definitely make a huge difference whether you keep the Massacre Bonuses or not. So this is quite easy to do on range classes, because you can kind of just like blast through, kite enemies. On melee classes it's a bit harder, so it might run out here and there. Don't worry too much about it, but you definitely want to try to do it a bit while going through the level. This kill speed here is definitely alright, so this is something you want to aim for. Something where you can comfortably 1 or 2 shot most trash and not really struggle your way through the map. If you have a bounty on the way, like here, you can also try to finish this for a bit of extra XP. But again, you don't really want to waste your time here too much. Just make sure you get through and finish the Kanai's Cube as fast as possible, because this is when you get usually a huge damage upgrade. In the case of a Demon Hunter, you would go with a dagger, so you can craft exactly 1 level 70 dagger and upgrade it to a legendary in the cube. So this is what you do here, and depending on the result, you can try to use that multiplier to your advantage. So here we got a Kali's Point, so as a Demon Hunter I will go and play with Impale from that point on, unless I get like some other really huge item that actually surpasses this one, but this is actually one of the decent outcomes. If you're not sure which item to upgrade, again you can consult our list here, so it's all explained for all the classes. So as a monk you go for Daibo, as a necromancer you go for two-handed scythes. You actually have only good outcomes there. Some classes it's a little bit hit and miss, so for example on the Witch Doctor it's like a 50-50 to get Scrimshaw if you do a spear, or you can do Ceremonial Knives where you have other pretty good outcomes, but it's very rare that you get a good one. So that depends a little bit on the class you're doing. Now in Season 25 specifically, as I mentioned at the start, you have the Soul Shards, and you can actually go for them at level 1 or after doing all the steps that I just described, and you can defeat certain Adventure Mode bosses that will 100% guaranteed drop these. So they are at rank 0, so they only get their base power, they don't have all these special effects yet, but there are some advantages here. So first of all, especially pet builds can go for Act 2 bosses with the Dregs of Lies, and almost every build in the game can also go for the Act 4 Sliver of Terror. In Act 4 and in Act 3 there are 2 different Soul Shards that drop from the bosses, and it's a 50-50 if you get 0 or 2, so you might have to farm a few bosses. In Act 4 I would recommend to go for Rakenmoth. The Sliver of Terror fits into basically any build, and it's quite useful to give you a little bit of a power. And also if you find extra Soul Shards, or if you farm them for a little bit, you can salvage them and potentially get a ruby, like a Marquise or Imperial or even Flawless Royal Ruby, that you might be able to socket into a low level weapon. So similar to the low level 70 weapon that we crafted earlier, you can get a massive damage bonus in the early levels by just having a socket and put a ruby in there. Now from this point forward you have to choose your leveling strategy. The easiest to do is Nephalem Rifts, but it's also the slowest. You don't have Massacre Bonuses in Nephalem Rifts, and Massacre Bonuses are huge for extra XP. So typically you want to go for Temple of the Firstborn to get massive Massacre Bonuses. Here you have lots of little small bugs that will give you extra kills, and that will stack up this Massacre bonus. So you try again to just kind of make pulls and kite enemies slowly with you, and depending on your build and depending on your class, you can do this better or worse. But the idea is that you stack up a lot of enemies, and then you get like 100, 200, 400 kills at a time, and this will multiply the XP gained. Other zones that you can go for are the Ruins of Zacheron, and then you go to Eternal Woods. This is on the right after the waypoint. Or you can also go for Fields of Misery, where you have all these goatmen. So this is also kind of popular zones where you have like one huge area and quite juicy monsters that give you lots of XP. So depending on the class, this might be a better choice. Another strategy that is not hardcore viable at all though is the House of Agony Blades. So especially on very weak classes, or if you get super unlucky with your gambling and cubing and all that, you can go for this and go on Torment 6 difficulty. So you gotta be careful. Mostly you will get one shot by anything that touches you, but you can use the cleavers at the entrance to level 2 to your advantage, because they will kill enemies that walk into them. So you usually want to kite a few enemies with you, and then once you arrive here, you can like try to get the enemies in there, and you see they get essentially one shot from this. This is on hard difficulty here, but if you do this on Torment 6, it will be exactly the same. But you gotta be careful, because they can one-shot you as well, and so can the monsters. So typically when doing this strategy, you want to go for a very defensive setup. You don't really actually try to deal any damage. You just include something like slows, stuns, mobility in your setup, and you also just basically stack vitality and res to try to survive a hit or two, and then you go around and maybe put like a slow there, kite enemies through this, and this is where you get lots of XP. If you do this strategy very well, you can reach level 70 on its own in around an hour, maybe slightly more, but I would only recommend this if you practiced this before. Lastly, there is also the Cursed Chest strategy, but this is mostly a group strategy. Especially with necromancers, with Corpse Explosion, this is extremely powerful, but if you want to do something else, you can go for Cursed Chest. So there is a list of Cursed Chests which you can find here. It's also in our leveling guide on Maxwell, but these are the ones you want to look out for as a bounty. And you can go there, for example, the Cursed Code in Act 1, and you just farm Cursed Chests on a high difficulty. So you go in there, if you can blast them down on like Torment 3 or higher, this is also a very good strategy. And if you can do this all the way on Torment 6, you can go to level 70 in something like 45 minutes with a very good group. So essentially when you have a party, you can split up in different games and just look for those bounties. And whenever someone finds them, they invite everyone else. Usually this just takes like one attempt of 4 different people, or maybe 2, and you can go for the Cursed Chest, clean it, and go again. So lastly, a few words about what to do once you reach level 70. So when you're finally there, you want to go for the Haedrig's Gift in most cases. So we will have a guide up here for Season 25, including all the different classes with their Haedrig's Gift. So Barbarians get Might of the Earth, Crusaders Invoker, Demon Hunter Shadow's Mantle, which is a very good start. Monk gets the Simoku, also pretty fine. Necromancer gets Inarius, which is something you usually don't really want to farm with, so you usually stick to LOD. Witch Doctors gets Jade, which is alright, and Wizards get the Firebird, which is also really strong to get started. So to get this, you have to do the first few chapters of the season journey, so you usually have to do like a Nephalem Rift on Master difficulty, and you have to do like 5 bounties, and you have to socket some gems and some little things. And you also have to defeat like all the Key Wardens once, I believe. Yeah, stuff like that. Usually nothing really too crazy, so just make sure you check out the season journey, make sure you get all those chapters done, and then for chapter 2, 3 and 4 each, you will get some pieces of your free set. Chapter 4 requires you to do a GR20, so this is usually the hardest part of those first 4 chapters, but once you've done that, you can immediately jump in, usually on at least Torment 10, start blasting a few rifts, get a few upgrades, and then you are in Torment 16, no problem, very quickly. And from there you can just grind all the way to GR 100 and beyond. Again, this guide can be found here on our resource menu on Maxroll, and I'll also make a video talking about the Haedrig's Gift setups and the GR20 runs in particular. And with this, I conclude the leveling guide for Season 25. I believe it's going to be very cool with the Soul Shards giving so much power and special effects that we haven't seen before. We have lots of buffs for Demon Hunter, Witch Doctor, Monk is going to look very strong. So lots of cool stuff in the meta this time as well. I think it's going to be a great season. So I hope you enjoyed this guide here. Wish you a good start, and see you guys next time.